Shalom family. So in today's video, I want to talk all about fertility. So first, what is fertility and what do I define fertility? I think of it as like growing a garden. You have soil that is fertile, which means it's ripe for the harvest. It has lots of different vitamins and minerals that the plants need to develop strong roots to be able to develop and produce fruits and be fruitful. So, fertility to me is bearing many fruits, being fruitful. And so, when we look at the relationship between the soil, good soil, that healthy foundation, and then we look at, the fertility in the body, it does start first with that nutrition and making sure that the body has a balance of the things that it needs. And so often you will hear the advice that you should take prenatal vitamins before you are actually trying to conceive, or when you decide you're trying to actively conceive, that you make sure that you have those vitamins and minerals that are necessary. And so this is important again to also make sure your body's functioning so that you will be at the optimal, I would say, peak fertility, so that your chances, of course, are better. But then also, let's say that you are developing a baby, making sure those vitamins and nutrients are there is really critical, because when you don't have that, when you have a deficiency, that's when you have defects. And so we want to make sure we have producing good fruits as well. So it's not just even fruits, good fruits. And so we want to make sure that we have adequate amounts of our fruits and vegetables, and not only that, have a diverse kind of palate, eating a lot of different things so we can have our macro and our micronutrients from our food, but then also making sure that we maintain that as well. And so it's easier when you are already healthy to be pregnant, because you have a greater chance of things like preeclampsia, which is the high blood pressure. So you want to make sure you don't have high blood pressure to begin with, to make sure that you're not going to be at risk. You want to make sure that you already have a strong pancreas, you don't have any problems with blood sugar metabolism, because of course your chances are higher and you can get gestational diabetes. And so we don't want to make the pregnancy difficult. So we want to make sure we do the right things up front. So you're thinking pretty much as a mommy already before you become one. All right. So after we go through, of course, that making sure that we're eating the right things, making sure our body is already functioning well before it has to function for two, right? Before we increase that output, we want to make sure that we also have that balance of our hormones. So our hormones are very instrumental in our menstruation and our ovulation, which are obviously needed for our reproductive health. And so we want to make sure that we're not eating the wrong things or putting the wrong things on our skin, absorbing or doing the wrong things that could interfere with our hormones. So there's hormone disruptors that you can find in different chemicals, different plastics. So we want to make sure that we minimize those as much as reasonably possible. And then there's also studies that found that you do have pesticide residue based on the things that you eat. So if you can eat organic as much as possible, grow your own food as much as possible as well, that's going to make sure you're not doing that transference of negative chemicals as well. And it's going to make sure that you or your body is a hospitable environment for a child, right? So we want to make sure that we are making sure that our hormones are where they need to be. And we're also just going to make sure that if anything goes wrong, we are addressing that, right? And we're not just addressing just a symptom one time. We want to make sure that, again, we have a total balance. So I have other videos that talk about especially the roles and functions of estrogen and progesterone, and some other hormones that are important as well, and how you can naturally, through food and diet, be able to um, increase or stimulate the production of these hormones. And even if you have an excess or a dominance of certain hormones as well, that can be detrimental. And then what you can do in those instances to get rid of those excess hormones. And then the third thing is, so we already looked at the hormonal chemical, but then we also may need to look at the structural, or we'll say cellular level. So or genetics, right? So if you're having trouble and you're doing all the right things, then that may be the time to actually get tested and see deeper what's going on. Now, sometimes things that, are genetic doesn't mean that it is like a sentence that this is what you're doomed to go through forever. I talked about how I had issues from birth with jaundice, being born 30 weeks, being born prematurely, and how that played out in my life, and how I only had 4 periods a year usually, and that would be with assistance of herbs. And so that I was able to get a transformation. So I want you to know also that just because someone says something doesn't mean like it's that way forever. What's going on right now doesn't have to be forever. Okay. And so I really want to get that out there. And, definitely it's hard not to, but don't operate in fear. Because I feel like when you make emotions based on fear, a lot of times you may be willing to do things that you shouldn't do or that you wouldn't do otherwise. So it's also important really to have that faith and also to have the persistence as well, because it's not just doing these things for 9 months or for, 10 months. It's doing these things every day, habitually. That is where you see the long term results as well. All right. And so whenever you're talking about fertility, I see that's something that's very common on, YouTube even, and they just kind of tell you just use this herb and you'll get pregnant within a week or whatever like that. But I would say you really don't want to always just kind of take the easy way or just do things the fast way, because is this something that you're going to have to do every single time? And after you go through maybe years of the struggle or the journey, are you going to want to do that every single time, right? So the little pillars that I shared, be very conscious and mindful of these things, and they do compound. I know as women, a lot of times whenever there's issues, it usually is looked at the woman, but you want to make sure also that these same things apply to your husband. And so for him, the estrogen and progesterone won't really be an issue, but making sure that testosterone levels are where they need to be. And the same thing applies with the hormone disruptors and also affecting the male body. And so be mindful of this. You can still use herbs that naturally help to increase testosterone, increase libido, and all those things. And as I said, don't operate in fear. It's a very stressful time, and it's important because stress can lead to a multitude of issues, including making it harder for you to conceive. And so, also, making sure you are naturally active as well, having that good blood flow is really important, uh, as well, to be able to have that libido where it needs to be, so that you guys are, not stressed and you're active. And so you'll be able to do what it takes to be able to conceive. The other thing you want to be mindful of is, of course, it is all cycles when it comes to the woman's body. And so we do have our period of ovulation. This is where we have the chance to get pregnant every single month. It's a week. And so I use a calendar, and I use it actually on my phone. So there's a variety of apps that will automatically track you. But you can also, notice if there's changes in discharge. You can also take your temperature every day, and that's another way to be sure if you're trying. And you can also get tests as well, even from Dollar Tree. They have ovulation tests. I've seen them. Don't know how well they work, but you can also use that just to make sure that your chances are the greatest. And so on the individual app, it will tell you which day you are the most fertile, so that you have a very high chance. And then there's like high to very high. So those 2 days where it's really the greatest chance, right? But also be patient. That's one thing that we learn with children, to be patient, be very patient, be very diligent. And I pray for all of the women out there who are hoping to conceive one day. It is a wonderful blessing that, I would love for every single woman who wants to have the opportunity to. So I hope this video was helpful for you. I'll have some resources and things linked down for you below. I do have like my Mastering the Womb course, but even past that, you can actually get the workbook, Mastering the Womb workbook, so you can see all the things that's in the course. If you're not ready to take a course, you can get that. I'll also link my 31 plus hormonal imbalances, includes imbalances for the female and male reproductive system. So if you're having any of those symptoms, to be able to kind of track the bigger issue, you can use that free download as well. All right, so I will see you guys in the next one. I'll link my hormone and reproductive system playlist as well. So you guys have so much information to absorb. And I'll see you guys in the next one.